For more on the property market in China, we welcome Gwynn Guilford, reporter and editor for Quartz, live for us in New York. Welcome to the show. It's good to have you on there from the NASDAQ. Let me start with this very simple question. Is the situation there under control, or do we have a problem?
It's starting to look like the bubble that's been developing for 5 years now, maybe longer, is starting to burst. And that's, the problem that underlies all this is it's not really a matter of policy anymore. It's a matter of supply and demand. And developers have been building like crazy on the supply side. And on the demand side, home ownership is already quite high. And partially because, this is one of the major assets that households can sink their wealth into as a store of value. And then the other thing is demographics. China's population is starting to shrink, and the number of new families that, the kind of people who would need new homes, that number is falling as well. So there might not be demand anymore the way there used to be in the past.
Now, I know this is a weird question, but is it possible there's a silver lining to this bubble bursting? Because a lot of people are complaining that things are too expensive. They can't afford to buy a house for the family. If it were to, quote, burst, wouldn't that bring ultimately prices down so that it becomes affordable for more people?
Yeah, I think you have a really good point. First of all, there are a lot of people who would be underwater. In the more expensive cities, families are spending 80% of their disposable income paying off their mortgages. That's a really bad situation. Those people are not going to be able to consume. But the silver lining is a really big one. Like, this bubble can't get any bigger. It shouldn't. That just means more debt piled onto the system that already has a lot of debt. So the bursting is a good thing. It's just how orderly or how quickly it
All right.
happens.
Well, I like how you described it as an orderly burst. I don't know if we'd call the last 5 years in the U.S. an orderly burst, but if you were advising the Chinese government to say, how do we have an orderly burst of the bubble? You know how much they have a tremendous amount of control over the property market there. What would you tell them, or how would you tell them how to have this orderly burst?
I think orderly burst is probably exactly what the government has in mind, and that's straight out of the sort of terminology that's used. But yeah, as you point out, orderly is not really in the cards. The government actually doesn't have a lot of control at this point. It's loosened so much. Even though those restrictions have been tightened in the last few years on who can get mortgages, there's not a lot of demand left, analysts say. So what the government really should do is not try to shore up the property market. Many analysts argue that fiscal stimulus is really important. Also social spending to support those people who are, paying down their mortgage, spending half of their, or 50%, 80% of their income on mortgages, and then more generally, just creating demand through government investment.
In 2007, you remember this. In 2008, there was a huge debate here in the United States whether or not we should bail out people who were over-leveraged when they bought 2, 3, 4, 5 homes. The bubble burst. The prices came down. They were on the verge of bankruptcy. Some did go bankrupt. Now in China, it's a little bit different, but there are going to be people who are going to be in trouble if the prices do come down. Do you think the government should provide some sort of safety net for them? What can they do? Or is it better to just let them go bust, have the prices come down, and they have to go bankrupt?
I think we'll find out. That's a question I don't think anyone has a great answer to right now. But the people who have done, the speculators who've been buying multiple houses the way it happened in the U.S. that caused so much trouble, those are people who generally had to, because of restrictions, pay most of their investment in cash. So they're not going to be that harmed by falling prices. They're wealthy anyway. As far as the homeowners who would be left underwater, we'll have to see how bad it gets. But if this does bite into consumption, which, as everyone talks about, is really important for economic rebalancing, that might be something that the government, some sort of relief might need to happen.
Gwynn Guilford, reporter and editor for Quartz, joining us from New York on this very complicated topic. I want to thank you again for your time.